Hi, and welcome back. This is the second part of the story about the girl who hired a fake boyfriend but got a real alpha instead. If you missed part 1, the link is in the description. Sit back, enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Thank you for listening. The scent of rain-soaked earth and pine filled the cabin. It was a smell that had become my new normal, a sharp contrast to the city's exhaust and stale office air. I ran a hand over the rough-hewn wood of the kitchen table, a phantom trace of a spreadsheet still on my mind. My old life felt like a ghost, fading a little more each day. Reese was a creature of habit. He rose with the sun, went for a run that would leave most men gasping for air, and returned with a quiet energy that filled the small cabin. He was a natural alpha, even in the most mundane moments. The way he moved, the way he held himself, was a silent testament to his power. But it was in the quiet spaces, the ones without a threat to face or a pack to lead, that the cracks in our foundation started to show. We weren't a normal couple. There was no easy rhythm of domesticity, no comfortable banter. Our relationship had been forged in a crucible of fear and survival. The elder, Maeve, had accepted our bond, and with that acceptance came a new reality. My life was here now, with him. He was fiercely protective, always knowing where I was, his gaze following me even when he pretended to be preoccupied with a report. His touch was a constant presence, a hand on the small of my back, a thumb tracing my knuckles as we sat in silence. It was a physical connection that felt powerful, even undeniable. But my human mind, the same one that used to obsess over balanced ledgers, couldn't help but run the numbers. Was this his genuine affection for me, Clara? Or was it his alpha instincts, a primal need to protect and possess his Luna? That morning, as I sat with a mug of tea, he came up behind me and rested his hands on my shoulders, his thumbs gently massaging my neck. "You're thinking too much again," he murmured, his voice a low rumble. "Just thinking about how different everything is," I replied, the lie feeling heavy on my tongue. I wanted to ask him, "Is this you, Reese? Or is this the bond?" But I was too afraid to hear the answer. He just tightened his grip, a small, territorial gesture that I was beginning to recognize. The tension followed us to the annual Midsummer Summit, a gathering of packs from all over the North American region. The alpha of each pack was required to attend with his mate. It was a show of power, of alliances, and of unity. I felt the familiar anxiety creep up my spine as we arrived at the sprawling, wooded estate. This was a world of werewolves, of fierce, ancient traditions, and I was the human among them. The whispers were immediate. "A human Luna? Is that truly possible?" their gazes asked. Reese was a solid, unwavering wall beside me. His hand was on my back, his thumb rubbing small circles, a silent anchor in a turbulent sea. We were an exhibit, a testament to an old prophecy, and I could feel the scrutiny of every wolf present. The formal presentations began, but my focus was elsewhere. A new alpha had just arrived, a man who radiated a different kind of power than Reese. He was handsome, with a charming smile that seemed to have a life of its own. He moved through the crowd with an easy confidence, shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries, and putting everyone at ease. He was the kind of alpha who led with a grin and a handshake, not just a glare and a command. His gaze found me, and he held it, a small, assessing smirk on his lips. I felt my cheeks flush. I quickly looked away, but when I looked back, he was walking towards us, his eyes fixed on me. "Reese," he said, his voice as smooth as aged whiskey. "It's been a while. And you must be Clara. I'm Kian, alpha of the Blackwood Pack." He didn't just look at me, he truly saw me. "I've heard great things about you," he said, and I could feel Reese's hand on my back tense. A human Luna. A truly fascinating development. It must be quite the change from accounting, isn't it? His gaze was direct and knowing. "It is," I replied, my voice a bit shaky. Kian chuckled, a warm, genuine sound. "I imagine so. Reese here has a reputation for being quite the force of nature. I'm sure you had no idea what you were getting into." He turned to Reese, his smirk widening. "Right, old friend? You had to convince her to join your world, didn't you?" A hard sell, I'm sure. She must have seen the contract as a way out, and you saw it as a way in. The jab was subtle, but the meaning was clear. He knew. He knew our bond hadn't started in a whirlwind of romantic fate. He knew it had started with a piece of paper and a desperate agreement. I felt a surge of shame. The lie that had saved us was now being used against us. Reese's hand tightened on my back. I could feel the raw jealousy radiating off of him, a low, dangerous hum. The alpha in him wanted to challenge this man, to make him back down. But Kian's smile was unwavering. He had a different strategy, one that didn't involve a physical fight. It was a game of emotional warfare, and for the first time, I felt like Reese was the one at a disadvantage. It was a difficult conversation, Reese said, his voice a low, cold warning. But as you can see, the outcome was worth it. Oh, I agree completely, Kian said, his eyes still on me. She is a prize. And a smart one at that. It takes a certain kind of woman to be able to make that kind of a choice. I would be honored to speak with you more later, Clara. Perhaps we could discuss your career. He was offering me a different path, a different kind of respect. A way out. He gave a final, charming smile and walked away, but the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted. I looked up at Reese, and for the first time since that wedding, the bond between us felt like a cage, not a sanctuary. The question I had been too afraid to ask now hung in the air between us. Was I with him because of who he was, or because of a lie that had become a very real truth? Chapter 2. The remainder of the summit was a slow, agonizing descent into chaos. Kian's words had poisoned the air between Reese and me. He was a master of his craft, using subtle smiles and quiet comments to chip away at our fragile facade. Every time he made eye contact with me from across the room, it felt like a private, knowing invitation. He was a constant, unsettling presence, a silent challenge to the unspoken rules of our relationship. That evening, during a less formal reception, Kian found me alone by the terrace doors. Reese was in a tense huddle with a few other alpha leaders, his back to me. Kian's approach was quiet, a stark contrast to his loud charm from earlier. You look like you're lost in thought, he said, his voice a low, smooth murmur. I jumped, startled. Just taking a break from the noise. He leaned against the wall, his posture relaxed and easy. I understand. This world can be overwhelming, especially when you're not born into it. His gaze was unnerving, not predatory, but genuinely interested. I'm sure Reese is very protective of you. I felt a familiar defensive knot form in my stomach. He is. Good, Kian said, a ghost of a smile on his lips. He should be. A Luna is a prized possession, after all. He let the words hang in the air, a barbed insult disguised as a compliment. I stiffened. I'm not a possession. He chuckled softly. Of course not. But tell me, Clara, do you ever get tired of being defined by your title? Of being just the human mate or the accountant Luna? My pack, they're different. We believe in free will. We believe a partnership should be a choice, not a destiny. The words landed with unsettling precision. He was offering me everything I had been subconsciously craving. A life where I was just Clara. Not a pawn in a supernatural game. Reese is my choice, I said, the words feeling a bit hollow even to me. Kian's eyes twinkled. Is he? Or is he a habit you got used to? A promise you feel you have to keep because an old man in a suit told you to? It takes a certain kind of courage to admit that something isn't working. It takes even more to walk away from it. He didn't need a response. He had said what he wanted to say. He looked at my hand, and his eyes dropped to the simple ring I wore, a small band Reese had given me to make our story more believable. It was just a placeholder, but it felt heavy now. He smiled again, a soft, confident smile that made me question everything, and then he was gone. I stood there, feeling exposed and vulnerable. A whirlwind of new doubts began to swirl inside me. Was Kian right? Was I just going along with this because it was easier than fighting? Was my love for Reese just an illusion, a powerful byproduct of a fated bond that had been forced upon us? A moment later, Reese was beside me. He took my hand, his grip firm and hot, his face a hard, unreadable mask. What did he say to you? His voice was a low growl, tight with controlled fury. Nothing, I lied, pulling my hand away. Just talking. He didn't believe me. His eyes, dark and stormy, searched my face. Clara, you're not just an accountant anymore. You can't lie to me. I'm your mate. The word grated on my nerves. Mate. Not partner. Not girlfriend. Just mate. Mate or not, I said, a rare surge of anger rising in my voice. You don't own me. I don't have to answer to you. I'm not your property to protect from a rival. Rhys flinched as if I had struck him. The possessive fury in his eyes was replaced by a raw, painful vulnerability. The mask of the confident alpha was gone, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the man I had come to care for, the man who was just as lost in this supernatural mess as I was. He was just a person, standing in front of me, terrified he wasn't enough. I don't see you as property, he said, his voice quiet, almost pleading. I see you as mine because I'm scared, Clara. I'm scared you'll realize I'm not enough for you. I'm scared you'll choose him. He ran a hand through his hair, a sign of agitation that was so completely human. I'm scared you'll walk away because you'll realize you don't actually love me, you just love the idea of the bond. His confession hit me like a splash of cold water. He was right. We had a bond, a supernatural connection, but had we fallen in love? Had the love been forged by fear, or was it a truth we had yet to admit? I looked into his eyes, and I knew, with a certainty that was both terrifying and thrilling, that the answer to that question was the most important thing in the world. And it was up to me to find it. Chapter 3. The words Rhys had spoken to me on the terrace echoed in my mind all night. They were a confession, a plea, and a stark admission of his deepest fear. For the first time, I saw him not as a powerful alpha, but as a man who was afraid of losing me. My human heart, the one that had been so tangled in my own fear and self-doubt, ached for his vulnerability. I wanted to reach out, to reassure him, but I couldn't. I was still lost, still searching for an answer to a question I was too afraid to ask myself. Was I with him because I had a choice, or because I had no other option? The next morning, I was a ghost. I moved through the pack gathering on autopilot, my gaze fixed on the ground, my movements hesitant. I was a puppet, and my strings were a tangled mess of doubt and unspoken questions. Rhys, sensing my withdrawal, reacted in the only way he knew how, with possessiveness. He kept me close, his hand a constant weight on the small of my back, his eyes scanning the crowd with a fierce intensity. Every look he gave me was a silent reminder of his claim, a claim I wasn't sure I could give my full heart to. His actions, meant to reassure me, only pushed me further away. I wasn't an object to be protected, I was a person who needed to breathe. During the morning feast, I excused myself to get some fresh air. The air was cool and crisp, a welcome relief from the stifling atmosphere inside. I walked away from the main hall, needing space to think. That was where I found him. Kian was sitting on a stone bench, looking out at the sprawling forest, a quiet, contemplative expression on his face. He looked at ease, as if he belonged here in a way Rhys, burdened by his duties, could not. Rhys gives you no room to breathe, does he? Kian said, his voice soft, not mocking. He's a great alpha. A powerful one. But he doesn't know how to let go. I didn't answer. I just sat on the bench, a few feet away from him. You know, he continued, I admire you. I really do. It takes courage to step into a world you don't understand, to be with a man who sees you as a symbol as much as he sees you as a woman. He looked at me then, his eyes, so different from Rhys's intense gaze, were clear and honest. I can give you something he can't, Clara. A choice. A life where you can just be you. No heavy titles, no ancient bonds. Just two people, choosing each other. His words were a temptation. A beautiful, dangerous offer of a simpler life. He saw my struggle, my need for normalcy, and he played it like a master musician. Rhys and I have a bond, I said, my voice quiet but firm. A bond you were told about, not one you chose, he countered gently. A story you had to play along with to protect yourself. But what if you don't have to pretend anymore? What if you can choose? His words left me reeling. He was right. Every step of our relationship, from the contract to the pack's acceptance, had been a reaction, a necessary lie. Was there anything real underneath it all? I stood up, overwhelmed, and just as I was about to walk away, Kian did something that surprised me. He reached out and gently brushed a stray leaf from my hair. His touch was light, respectful, and completely disarming. It wasn't a claim or a demand, it was a simple act of kindness. Just think about it, Clara, he whispered. That's all I ask. He walked away, leaving me to grapple with my doubt. I felt a surge of fear, but not for Kian. I was scared of myself. Scared of the little voice in my head that was screaming for the simplicity he offered. When I returned to the main hall, Reese found me immediately. I expected anger, jealousy, but all I saw was a deep, quiet sadness. He didn't ask where I had been. Instead, he simply reached for my hand. He didn't just hold it, he threaded his fingers through mine, a familiar gesture that, for some reason, felt different now. He was offering comfort, not control. I know it's a lot, he said, his voice low. I know this isn't what you signed up for. But I want you to know something. He pulled me gently into a quiet corner, his eyes searching my face. I'm not just with you because of a bond, Clara. I'm with you because you're the only person who has ever seen me. The real me, not just the alpha. You're the one who saw I was terrified, the one who didn't back down. You're the most amazing woman I've ever met. And if you chose to walk away right now, I would let you go. He said it with a devastating sincerity that stole my breath. This wasn't a trick. This was him, being vulnerable, offering me the one thing I had been begging for, a real choice. In that moment, I saw not a werewolf, not a protector, but just Reese. And the realization hit me with the force of a tidal wave. My fear of being owned had been so strong, I had never stopped to consider that he was the one who felt trapped, the one who was truly afraid. My heart, which had been so cold and calculating, suddenly felt full and warm. It wasn't the bond. It was him. Chapter 4. Reese's confession hung in the air, a raw, vulnerable truth that shattered the last of my doubts. The man who had trained me to be strong was, himself, afraid. The alpha who had always been a wall of unwavering confidence had just shown me his deepest insecurity. He was worried he wasn't enough for me without the pull of fate. He had given me an out, a simple escape, and in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that his feelings were real. They weren't the product of a forced bond, they were a choice. My own shame and fear dissolved, replaced by a clarity that was both terrifying and exhilarating. For so long, I had believed I was trapped, but it was just a cage I had built for myself. Reese had always given me the key, I had just been too afraid to use it. I took a shaky breath and reached out, cupping his face in my hands. His skin was warm against my palms, and his eyes, so full of pain and uncertainty, held mine. You're an idiot, I whispered, and a small, watery smile touched my lips. I'm not with you because of a bond. I'm with you because you're the only person who has ever seen me. The real me. Not the timid accountant, not the scared Luna, but just Clara. You saw my quiet strength and you didn't try to change me, you just gave me the courage to use it. His eyes widened, the vulnerable look on his face replaced by one of profound relief and surprise. You're the only person who has ever looked at me and said, "You're enough," I continued, my voice gaining strength. That's not a bond, Reese. That's love. And I'm choosing you. Not because of a contract, and not because of fate. I'm choosing you because you're mine. He let out a low, shaky breath and leaned his forehead against mine, his arms wrapping around me, pulling me into a fierce, protective embrace. Mine, he whispered, a word that once felt like a cage but now felt like a home. In that embrace, a new kind of bond was forged, one that was stronger than any supernatural force. It was a bond of trust, of honesty, and of mutual choice. We were no longer a fake couple playing a part for an audience. We were a true partnership. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were clear, and a new fire burned in them. He looked at me, a silent question in his gaze. I gave a small nod. It was time. We found Kian talking with a group of younger alpha hopefuls, a captivating smile on his face as he recounted a story. I walked up to him, a new sense of purpose in my stride, with Reese's steady presence by my side. Kian, I said, my voice steady. He turned, his smile still in place, a flicker of surprise in his eyes as he saw the resolved look on my face. Clara, have you come to talk about your career? He said, his voice laced with the usual charming insinuation. No, I replied, my voice gaining in volume. I've come to thank you. He raised a perfect eyebrow, his smile faltering. You were right, I said. I wasn't with Reese because I chose to be. I was with him because of a bond, and because I was too scared to face my family, and too scared to face the truth. You made me realize that. You made me realize that I wasn't just in this because of a contract. I was in this because I had to be. A triumphant look flashed in his eyes, but it was short-lived. But you also taught me something else, I continued, looking from Kian to Reese, and then back again. You taught me that a relationship isn't a destiny, it's a choice. And so, I'm choosing. I'm choosing to be with Reese, not because of a bond, but because he's a man who wasn't afraid to admit his fear to me. He's a man who has always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. He is a good man, and I choose him. The words rang with a truth that was undeniable. Kian's confident mask cracked. His charm evaporated, replaced by a deep, furious disbelief. You're a fool, he hissed, his voice low and dangerous. I just smiled, a small, confident smirk. Maybe. But I'm a fool who has made her own choice. And that, Kian, is something you'll never understand. I turned to Reese, my hand finding his, and in a silent gesture, we walked away. Kian's defeat wasn't a physical one, it was a defeat of his cynical worldview. He had seen a fake relationship and tried to use it to his advantage, but he never saw that the lie was a necessary step towards a powerful, undeniable truth. My choice was a declaration, not just to Kian, but to the entire pack. I was not just Reese's mate. I was his equal. I was his partner. And our love was forged in a fire that was stronger than any ancient bond. Chapter 5. Kian's silence was his surrender. We walked away from him, our hands intertwined, the air around us crackling with a victory that was more profound than any physical battle. His defeat wasn't a result of Reese's physical strength, but of our combined emotional strength. We had faced his cynicism with our truth, and the truth had won. We didn't say anything to each other as we walked through the hall. We didn't need to. The conversation had already happened. Everything that needed to be said had been said in that moment. The alpha in Reese was at peace, and my human heart, finally unburdened, was overflowing. When we finally reached our secluded cabin, a new kind of quiet settled between us. It was a comfortable, easy silence, not the tense, suffocating one we had shared before. The facade was gone. The questions had been answered. We were just two people, in a cabin in the woods, finally free to be ourselves. I looked at Reese as he started a fire in the hearth. The firelight danced on his face, illuminating the planes of his jaw and the quiet intensity in his eyes. He wasn't just my protector or my alpha, he was my person. He was the one who saw through my fear and gave me the courage to stand on my own. He wasn't the man I needed, he was the man I chose. He looked up and caught my gaze, a rare, gentle smile on his lips. What? He said, his voice a low, rough murmur. Nothing, I replied, a watery smile touching my lips. I'm so glad I chose you. He came to me then, his hands coming to rest on my face, his thumbs gently stroking my cheeks. His eyes, the color of a hazelnut in the firelight, were full of a love so profound it stole my breath. I'm so glad you chose me too, he whispered. He kissed me then, and it wasn't the kiss of an alpha claiming his mate. It was the kiss of a man who had been terrified of losing the most important thing in his life and had just been given a second chance. It was a kiss that was full of gratitude and love, and a promise for a future that was no longer built on a lie, but on a powerful, undeniable truth. The next morning, We woke up in each other's arms. We were no longer a timid accountant and a powerful alpha. We were just Reese and Clara, two people who had found each other against all odds. We had a bond, yes, a bond forged in fear and forged in fire, but we also had something more. We had love. A love that was a conscious choice, a love that was stronger than any supernatural force. The world was no longer a cage, it was an open door. We had a life to build, and it would be a life of our own choosing. Epilogue. The pack welcomed us with a new respect, not just for Reese, but for me. I wasn't just the human who had fulfilled an ancient prophecy, I was the Luna who had chosen her alpha, a choice that had been tested and proven real. Kian eventually returned to his own territory, defeated not by force, but by a love he couldn't understand. Our story became a legend, a whispered tale among the packs about the human who chose her alpha, not by fate, but by her own free will. My life with Reese was not always a fairy tale. There were still pack duties, ancient traditions, and supernatural threats. But we faced them all together, a united front. Reese still protected me, but it was with a newfound respect for my own strength, and I, in turn, learned to stand beside him, not behind him. I found my own power, my own voice, and my own place in a world I was never meant to be a part of. The most important truth I learned wasn't about werewolves or ancient bonds. It was about love. Love isn't a destiny, it's a choice. And it's a choice I would make every single day. Thank you for following along with the Alpha Contract and the Luna's Choice. If you enjoyed this journey and want to dive into more paranormal romance and fantasy tales, subscribe to Sharon's Feral Fantasies. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified about our new videos and live streams. What did you think of the story? Did Clara make the right choice? Let me know in the comments below.